In long-ago colonial times, in a valley hidden in the faraway hills of Honduras, there sprang up around a silver mine a village called San Antonio de Oriente. While the ore lasted, the town bustled with activity, but when the silver ran out, it sank into a peaceful, primitive, uneventful existence. Without roads or electricity, it was long forgotten by the outside world. Then, one day in 1930, a young man named José Antonio Velásquez came to take over the telegraph office, San Antonio's sole means of communication with the rest of the country. The new arrival was not merely a telegraph operator, but a barber as well, and years later he was to become the village mayor. The most curious thing about him, however, was his liking for painting, and San Antonio, where he married and his first children were born, was for 40 years to be the subject of most of his pictures. Today, thanks to this modest, unassuming man, D'Antonio as his neighbors call him, San Antonio de Oriente is known throughout the world, wherever there are people to appreciate the beauty of simple, unpretentious painting and the charm of a naive view of reality. Long years of solitary effort have taught Velásquez how to give depth to space, how to round out forms and give them weight. This is his way of painting clouds. See how he takes from a frugal, all but barren palette a touch of white and applies it with his brush to the canvas. Now, as he rubs what he has painted, the clouds take on volume. This simple process of his own invention, no one taught it to him. Neither did anyone show him how to balance a composition, as he does in this case, by reducing the height of the stone wall. D'Antonio does his painting brick by brick, roof tile by roof tile, as if he were entering items in an inventory. First, he traces the outline of the stones of the wall. Then he makes it less precise. In this way, he gives bulk to the wall and diminishes the importance of the foreground. Instinct and experience guide his hand. Velásquez is a methodical worker. At noon, he lays down his brush and goes home. There, his wife and some of his grandchildren are waiting for him. has lunch. After a short siesta, he goes for a walk around the village.
Ayer tarde pasé por tu casa, pasé llorando por vos. Un sentimiento llevaba que nunca te dije adiós. Un sentimiento llevaba que nunca te dije adiós. Las naranjas y las uvas en el palo se maduran, poquitos cuando se quieren, entre las voces saludan.
The people, the animals, the out-of-the-way corners of San Antonio de Oriente are an endless source of inspiration to Velásquez, and he makes good use of the material they provide for his brush. It may well have been the old church that got him started as a painter. His first work consisted of altar decorations and processional banners. They were painfully precise copies of popular prints. Their colors were dry and pale. The all-seeing eye of God could be the symbol of the painter's keen perception. Velásquez puts the finishing touches on this view of his village. Every detail has been captured. This is not just a Honduran village, it is the Honduran village. Contrast this picture with D'Antonio's first San Antonio landscape, painted in 1933. Here the outlines are razor sharp. The colors are harsh. It took 10 or perhaps 15 years for the artist to succeed in catching the hues of tile roofs and stone walls, in differentiating shades of green, in creating a sense of space around trees, people, and animals. All creative artists take liberties. Celebrations are not a common occurrence in Velásquez village, but the painter has introduced into his picture a band of street musicians who enliven the hill country life. San Antonio de Oriente is too poor to have a parish priest of its own, but Velásquez has placed a clergyman among the villagers and shows them all parading toward the church, whose whitewashed facade is an ever-present element in his paintings. Our artist was born in 1906 in another small Honduran town called Caridad. From the time he was a little boy, he took an interest in painting. Instinct was his only teacher, but it has provided so sure a guide to his eye that today he is considered the most fully realized of all the folk painters of the Americas. Natural painters, the primitives of our time, have to invent their technique, just as did the painters who came before the Renaissance. They all seek to capture reality, but they have had no one to teach them how to go about it. The liberties Velásquez takes always have a basis in things that have at some time formed part of his surroundings. Thus, although he occasionally paints a memory, he never departs from reality. What he sees today and what he recalls from the past, he analyzes and transforms into the purest of art, painting with the directness of a man expressing the soul of his people. Walking on cobblestones isn't easy. D'Antonio paints the cobblestones one by one. Dogs are never lacking in the streets of San Antonio, and the artist does not fail to include them in his canvases. He also includes his neighbors, the vegetable woman, the flower seller, woodcutters, children. Nothing escapes the sharp eye of this reporter of village life, and he admits no falsification in his record of unchanging events. Unchanging, too, are the temperate climate and the abundant vegetation, amid the green of which bougainvillea, geraniums, and hibiscus strike contrasting notes. Jacaranda trees in flower add a touch of purple. Through the paintings of José Antonio Velásquez, the rural charm of San Antonio de Oriente has been brought to museums in Germany, the Netherlands, and Belgium. It has made its appearance in competitions in Sao Paulo, Madrid, and Mexico City. It has brought a bucolic note to collections in many parts of the Americas. In books and magazines published abroad, it is San Antonio that represents Honduran painting. Velásquez has transferred its enchantment directly to canvas, without trickery or striving for effect. So great is Velásquez's skill that, comparing the painting with the landscape, we could almost confuse the one with the other. The pines of San Antonio, towering boldly over church and rooftops, are, as it were, the hallmarks of Honduras, a land of unforgettable pine groves. Not far from San Antonio, in another steep-walled Honduran valley, lies Tegucigalpa. Originally, it was an Indian settlement, but Spaniards began to arrive there toward the end of the 16th century, and since 1880, it has been the capital of the country. The main square, opposite the cathedral, bears the name of the national hero, General Francisco Morazan, a native of Tegucigalpa, who cherished a dream of a federation of Central American republics. After views of San Antonio, this is Velásquez's favorite scene. He sketches and paints it time and again. As you can see, Morazan Square, with its statue of a man on horseback and the cathedral in the background, is transferred to the painter's canvas without alteration, save for the heightening of the color. One change Velásquez has made, however, and that is in the feeling of space. He knows how to give a scene ideal proportions, the roominess it calls for, but may not possess. This is an element for which Velásquez, as a born artist, has a natural instinct. As the heat of the morning grows, the square becomes a refuge for people seeking a place to rest. The scene draws tourists and their cameras. They focus on the cathedral, aiming to preserve on film this gem of Central American colonial architecture. On the heights surrounding Tegucigalpa stands the suburb of Guanacaste. Here the painter lives when he is not at home in San Antonio. From this vantage point, the master realist analyzes and puts on canvas other aspects of Honduran life. Velásquez is a tireless worker, but the sun beats down mercilessly as noon approaches. A granddaughter helps the artist quench his thirst. Tegucigalpa, in the blinding light of noonday, takes on intensity. The elements in the landscape stand out more sharply. Their brilliance draws the painter's penetrating eye. He extracts their artistic essence and renders them eternal. Velásquez is always both an actor and a member of the audience. He imagines himself standing on the bridge and proceeds to do a self-portrait. Neighborhood children, on their way home from school, find Antonio painting and stop to watch the work of this primitive, who sees the surroundings as they do, in all their purity, without disguise. Is Don Antonio, José Antonio Velásquez, telegraph operator, barber, village mayor, and painter. Above all, a painter, a Honduran painter. For Don Antonio paints his native land with the love of a man sprung from its people, the people among whom traditions live on without change, with the timelessness of art.
Aquí me tienes parado como garcita en laguna. ¿Cómo quieres que me vaya sin esperanza ninguna?